Oh, hey, it's Mark. Hey, bell's about to ring. Let's go. Hey, sit down, close the books, close the door. Why? Because I'm a history teacher, and I'm about to go rogue. Hey, check it out. Do you know how I got from Iraq to Afghanistan? Iran. Because Iran is the country between Iraq. You know what? Iran. No laughing matter. No joke. No punchline. So what's up with Iran? Let's find out. Let's go rogue. Now, the Iranians are descendants of the Persians. Persians have a long history. If you're a Sunday go-to-meeting type, you might remember the names Darius and Xerxes from the Old Testament. No, Xerxes was not an 8-foot-tall dude with an effeminate voice and piercings all over his face. Now, the Persians are like the Egyptians. They go away for a while, then they regroup and emerge in another form. You know, the first incarnation of the Persians was the Achaemenid dynasty. These are the ones that were defeated by Alexander the Great in the 300s BC. But after Alexander died, the Persians reappeared and lived alongside the Romans. When the Roman Empire collapsed, the Sasanian Empire, Persians, expanded to the Middle East. They receded again in the face of the Muslim Abbasids, then reemerged as the Safavids in the 1300s. When the Europeans ushered in the age of imperialism, the Persians receded again. Now we enter a post-imperialist world, and the Persians are again attempting to expand, this time as a new nation, Iran. In post-World War II era, Iran played a significant role for the United States in its policy of containment. Iran bordered the Soviet Union to its north, and the United States used the country to check any Soviet intrusions into the Middle East. Great Britain also had a special relationship with Iran, having built Iran's oil extraction industry through the Anglo-Persian Oil Company. Two of the keystones of Iranian policy today is anti-America and anti-Israel. Historically, whatever Muslim leader could claim to be the most anti-Israel garnered the most public support. Why is that? In 1948, the state of Israel declared independence and was promptly attacked by a coalition of Arab nations. The Israelis pushed the Arabs back, and Israel was born. But it has been a thorn in the side of the Muslim world ever since. American support for Israel has created anti-American feelings across the Middle East, and Muslim leaders have used American support for Israel to capture the support of their Muslim populations. In 1951, 3 years after Israel, Mohammad Mossadegh was elected Prime Minister of Iran. Mossadegh introduced a series of social reforms to Iran, including land reform and social security, and even in a more democratic system, tolerated the existence of an Iranian Communist Party. When he moved to nationalize the Iranian oil industry, kicking out the British and putting the oil company under government control, that was crossing the line. The British discovered oil in Iran and fostered its oil business as the Anglo-Persian Oil Company, which is now British Petroleum. So, the British intelligence agency, MI6, and the American Central Intelligence Agency orchestrated a coup d'etat in 1953 that ousted Mohammad Mossadegh and gave Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi more direct control over the government. One of the most outspoken critics of the Shah's government was a Shia cleric, the Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. He opposed the continued American military presence in Iran, and when he was too vocal about a law making American soldiers subject to American military courts rather than Iranian courts, the Shah's government exiled him to Turkey. In 1977, demonstrations against the Shah's government began. Those developed into a campaign of civil resistance by student-led leftists and Islamic organizations. By the fall of 1978, the country was paralyzed by strikes and demonstrations. The Shah left the country in January 1979. The exiled Ayatollah Khomeini was then invited back to Iran and was met by several million supporters in Tehran, the capital. The last of the Shah's loyalists were defeated by demonstrators loyal to the Ayatollah, and the Ayatollah became supreme leader of Iran following a referendum in April, creating a theocratic government headed by a council of mullahs, which was headed by the Ayatollah Khomeini. In the middle of the revolution, a group of students assaulted the United States Embassy in Tehran, taking the embassy staff hostage. 52 members of the staff were held for 444 days, starting in November 1979. God bless him, President Jimmy Carter made every effort to get the hostages released, but the new revolutionary government of the Ayatollah would not budge. The United States and its European allies countered the Iranian actions by seizing all Iranian financial assets in their countries and imposing harsh sanctions on the regime. In 1980, President Carter authorized a military rescue effort, Operation Eagle Claw, that failed when some of the aircraft crashed, taking on sand in the Middle Eastern desert. And the American hostages were still there in Tehran. Rather than campaign during the 1980 presidential election, Jimmy Carter continued working for the release of the American hostages, and he was defeated by Ronald Reagan. He continued working the phones through the transition period. Then, to add insult to injury, as Jimmy Carter was leaving the White House and Reagan was taking the presidential oath, the Iranians released the hostages. The hostage crisis was over, but hostilities with Iran were not. In 1980, Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein launched an invasion of Iran, starting a war that lasted 10 years. But even while bogged down by war, Iran continued taking shots at the United States through its proxies in the region. Hezbollah, the Party of God in Arabic, is a terrorist organization operating in Lebanon, mainly against Israel. A civil war in Lebanon created enough chaos for Hezbollah terrorists to take 4 American hostages in Beirut and explode a car bomb next to a U.S. Marine barracks, killing 241 servicemen. Iran also attempted to squeeze shipping through the Straits of Hormuz between the oil-rich Emirates of the Persian Gulf and the Indian Ocean. But the Iranian Navy, composed mainly of small swift boats, was swept aside by the exponentially larger U.S. Navy. The Iranians cooled their jets during the 1990s. Where their economy crippled by Western sanctions, they looked inward. On the global map, they continued sponsoring terror groups throughout the Middle East, mainly Hezbollah in Lebanon and another anti-Israel group, Hamas, operated in the Gaza and the West Bank. What they really wanted to do, though, was develop a nuclear weapon, and they quietly went about the process. By the 2000s, the Iranians were finding ways around the Western sanctions and quickly closing in on a nuclear weapon, only lacking the enriched uranium to fire the device. This brought the United States, Russia, China, Britain, France, and Germany to the negotiating table with the Iranians. The result was an Iran nuclear deal. By the terms of the deal, Western sanctions on Iran would be lifted with a promise from Iran to stop its nuclear efforts for 15 years. President Barack Obama agreed to release the monies frozen by the Carter administration in 1979 and pay the Iranians back with interest. 25 years of interest to the tune of approximately 35 years of interest. 35 years of interest to the tune of approximately $100 billion, 1.7 billion of it cash and unmarked bills. With the nearly $2 billion in cash now on hand, the Iranians stepped up developing its nuclear capabilities, not expressly denied by the nuclear agreement. It attempted to squeeze Saudi oil exports by attacking tankers passing through the Straits of Hormuz, then launched a missile attack against Saudi refineries. At the same time, Iran expanded its influence in the Middle East via greater military actions through its Quds forces, headed by General Qasem Soleimani. It modernized the weapons that Hamas and Hezbollah were using in the war against Israel. It modernized the weapons that the Houthi rebels were using in their civil war against the government of Yemen. From Yemen, the Iranians, proxies, launched missiles into Saudi Arabia, disrupting the flow of oil from that country, and also have the ability to control access to the Red Sea through the Straits of Aden. The Quds force, under Soleimani, became the major influence over the dictator of Bashar al-Assad in Syria during the now 9-year-old civil war, which has killed 500,000 people and created 5 million refugees. Assad has been roundly criticized for using poison gas on civilian populations and for numerous human rights violations that we only know about from people that have escaped from the carnage. The Quds was also instrumental in training and supplying Shia militias in Iraq. When the United States military toppled the regime of Saddam Hussein in 2003, a vacuum was created, and numerous forces rushed in to fill it. Saddam Hussein was a Sunni Muslim, and for many years the Sunnis controlled the country of Iraq. Most Iraqis, though, are Shia, like the Iranians. and now want control over their own destiny. They want the United States out as well. Iranian-backed Shia militias have targeted American military personnel using improvised explosive devices, IEDs, and new armor-piercing explosives developed by the Quds forces of Qasem Soleimani. It has been calculated that Soleimani is directly responsible for the deaths of more than 600 American servicemen in Iraq. So, after Soleimani authorized an attack on the United States Embassy in Baghdad, President Donald Trump had had enough. Soleimani was killed by a U.S. drone in January 2020. Some thought that this would lead to an actual shooting war between the United States and Iran, or that Iran will step up its attacks on U.S. interests in the Middle East. As of now, that remains to be seen. So there you go, a short history of Iran. What does history tell us? Will Iran back down after the killing of its most able general? Or will Iran step up its actions against the United States? Or will the people of Iran rise up against their oppressive government? Hey, if you know the answer, tell me in the comments below. Like and subscribe for more History Teacher Gone Rogue. I want to thank my producer, Casey Moulton and Avery, and Mr. Brent Allen for letting us borrow his studio here on the campus of Columbia High School. I had fun, but I won't quit my day job. And remember, I'm Mark Haggard. I'm a history teacher. And I've gone rogue. And I ran so far away. And I ran, I couldn't get away.